This is New England Soccer Weekly with Tom Quinlan, Nick Giuliano, and Mike DeSilva on 790 The Score.
All right, New England Soccer Weekly back on your air. Very exciting show this week, boys and girls. We might as well get right to it. Mike, Nick, guys, how are you?
What's up?
Doing good, doing good. Happy weekend, all.
Happy weekend going into match week 9.
Match week 9.
Flying.
And Sporting Kansas City this weekend in, well, okay. You're sitting in first place in the Eastern Conference right now, but you're tied on points with FC Cincinnati. St. Louis SC drubbing FC Cincinnati, so now you're in first place in the East. But it's another game that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Columbus?
Yes.
Why?
Well, the circumstances weren't great. I mean, things happened in the game that weren't great.
At the end of the game, sure.
I think the storyline this week is Dylan Barrero. The fact that Barrero gets the red and just completely undisciplined. You go from a game where, overall, before Barrero gets sent off, you're loving what you see. Like, they're on the road. You really didn't think that they would be playing as pressing as they were, especially without Gustavo Bo, especially without Bobby Wood. And they did really well. And Vrioni, if he just buries one of his chances in the first half, I think you take Columbus completely out of that game. And then you get the lead, and you're like, okay, you're kind of cruising here for the final 30 minutes. You might be able to steal 3 points on the road versus Columbus. And then the maturity of Dylan Barrero shines, or for the lack of, shines through. And I said it last year when Dylan Barrero was going to Miami and jet setting to South Beach after home games. And I said, hey, doesn't seem like this guy's focused. Everybody came down on me and said,
okay, hold on. Let's not do this. It was one game. And it was a moment. It was a lapse of judgment for sure. That first card for dissent, you can't let happen.
Hold on, let me finish.
But this is, I don't know if this isn't going to be. We don't need a grandiose monologue right now.
And then Bruce, after the game on Saturday night, points out the real lack of maturity that Dylan Barrero has right now. And I think it's going to be detrimental. Well, first off, you don't have him this weekend, so now you got to. I don't think it's going to kill you versus a terrible Sporting Kansas City team. But at the same time, when the hell is this kid going to grow up? Because just when you think he's starting to figure it out and put it together, you get that. And you know what? We tried to tell you last year. It doesn't shock me, and it leaves a bad taste in my mouth because I really don't care about all of the extra time from the deciding was it a handball, was it not a handball.
I prepared for a totally different show today.
Probably was a handball, by the way. He got away with it. So it's not that should leave you enraged. It's what Dylan Barrero did to lose you 3 points. And then the managing at the end of the game also loses you 3 points. So I'm not walking out of here thinking, oh, this is a great tie versus Columbus on the road. It's another game against a really good in-conference opponent where you didn't get the job done. See, that's what's sticking out of me right now.
I definitely think New England had overall better play, but going back and watching that game again, these were two very good teams. I actually thought it was a quality MLS game that we saw on Saturday night. Columbus is good, and Columbus had plenty of opportunities where Petrovic came up big that they just missed as well. Right. So I don't know if it was as big of a domination, Tom, as you're making out to be. I think this game could have gone either way. I do think, like I said, New England was better, but again, for week 8, and a team that continuously is getting points, it's another point on the road. I don't see too much wrong here.
No, and again, if this was a home game and, later in the season, we might have looked at this, under a magnifying glass a little bit closer. But I think overall, you kind of got what you wanted, right? Like, you're happy leaving Columbus with a draw.
I think so.
It's a very good team. Yes, Tom, I understand they could have won the game. I understand.
Yeah, but Tom wants them to win every game. It just doesn't work out that way.
It's fine. I get it. I completely understand that. But at the end of the day,
they also could have lost this game.
You cannot look back on that game and say that, wow, it's a complete loss of a week. It's a complete disappointment. You got a point on the road against one of the other better teams in the Eastern Conference. I think that's a win. The Dylan Barrero stuff is disappointing.
That one moment, the second card, that was warranted. That yellow card,
it was,
and that does happen. But the dissent one, you can't let happen. Sure.
And I think that the type of player that he is, it's just something you're going to have to live and die with. Yes, could he be more mature at times? Absolutely. But that's just how some of those guys are. You got to live and die with his personality because he's a dynamic player. He's a guy that likes the ball at his feet, and sometimes they come with a little more drama.
And he made that goal happen.
Exactly. So yes, I don't think that this is.
But that was the turning point in the match. I think. I really do think. Did you?
It affected the match. I think it affected the match for sure.
Of course, it would.
To the point where you let Columbus back in the game because of that moment, because you couldn't control yourself in that moment. And
but
you're right about Columbus.
I don't know if that to let them back in. I don't know if that's right though, because
I think so. It is.
I don't think so, because if you go back and you look, they had plenty of opportunities throughout the course of the 90 minutes.
Sure, I think they had moments, but I think largely the game was controlled by New England. I would say, without going over.
I don't know about largely, but I think New England had the better overall play. But I think it was pretty.
I think
even.
It was close enough.
Yeah.
I do agree that New England was the
they
better.
Looked
they
better.
were the better of the two teams.
Yes.
On a grand scale, but I don't think it leaned so much towards New England that this is an easy this is the reason why they lost. I think it was two good teams that played a good match, and unfortunately, Revolution made some mental errors.
Well, so
Dylan Barrero specifically.
Yeah, and then I think you got to finish your chances with Vrioni a couple times in the box, cuts free, and there's just no power behind his shots. And I asked him after the game.
Okay, hold on. So this I'm gonna do. I knew you were gonna say this, so I prepared for this. You go back and listen to Adam Buxa. I'm gonna say the same thing that I said about Buxa that I'm gonna say about Veroni. Are they the same player? No, but it's the same type of concept. Do you want him to score? Yes. He is being paid as a forward to score. That's the ultimate goal. No pun intended. Mm-hmm. But a player that is coming off, as you talked about, Mike, an injury, just getting integrated back into the starting lineup for the first time, coming off a goal, he put himself in positions to score. There were 3 very good opportunities. One, by the way, went off the crossbar. The other one, the goalie just tipped it wide. That was going in. So do you want him to score? Yes, but for his performance there, I thought it was a very, very strong performance for Veroni getting that start.
He's building confidence for sure, and then that's the key, because we saw the same thing with Adam Buxa, was that at the beginning, because he struggled, his confidence took a hit. You could tell he wasn't getting the playing time. You can tell he was pretty uncomfortable out there, but then now you start to build some of these games. He has a goal now. I'm talking about Veroni now. He has a goal. He's getting these chances. He's getting more minutes. He got the start. So I think that there's a lot of things working in his favor that is only going to benefit him, and there are going to be nights where those opportunities go in.
Sure.
It's just a numbers game.
And for those looking for another example, if you go back and watch the Revolution goal, which was an own goal because Dylan Barrero played a perfect ball in, if the defender wasn't there, Veroni was right next to him.
And then that's his goal.
And then that's his goal. So again, he's in the right spot. So I'll say it again. Do you want him to score every time he shoots the ball? Yes.
He's still not. Yeah.
But he showed a lot to me coming off the bench, and he showed more to me against Columbus, and that's what you want to see in a maturation of a player.
He was very good in a big moment versus Columbus, especially because, as I said at the top, no Wood, no Bo, so he
played well.
He played well
when you needed him,
and still, when you needed him. I wish
he gave you a quality performance.
He gave you
would have been better if he scored. Absolutely,
definitely.
Those days will come.
The other problem the other night, Bruce's decision making at the end of that game made no sense to me. Why do you bring on Ima Boateng for Latif Blessing?
Oh, I'm going to go above. I'm going to jump that. You're correct. Why is Josie Altidore the first player off the bench in the 76th minute when you're down? When you're up 1-0 down a man? How does that make sense? Even with I know Kessler's not there.
Josie as a hold-up striker is probably better in that spot than Vrioni.
But why?
I think that's what I think Bruce is going for. And Seth Maycomer from the Blazing Musket has talked about in the past about how this system is, set up for strong, hold-up strikers. And
but you have to. Your thought process has to change when you're up 1-0 down a player.
14 minutes left in the game. I think Josie's also a bigger body. He's more experienced, and I think you need a striker to close out the game there.
Didn't look great. He didn't look great.
I think the Ima sub is more egregious because Latif Blessing has probably been the most consistent player when he's playing for the Revs this year. Obviously, he's been hurt and missed a couple
I agree
of
with
games,
that.
But when he's
That
out
stuff
there,
didn't make
he's
sense.
the most reliable player you've got. I thought taking him out at the 83rd minute, like you said, down a man, you got to bring in Ima Boateng, who, the only time we ever see Ima here is when, in case of emergency, break glass for Ima.
I know Kessler wasn't there, Mike, but you look at the bench and it's not great options because they're dealing with some injuries right now. But to me, Bruce Arena, who for decades we've talked about this before, park the bus, try to get out of there with a 1-0 victory. You're down a man. Your first substitution is to swap forwards. Where again, I don't love these options, unfortunately, but you have a McCoon, you have even an Ima. I would have maybe dropped him back more. You even have Omar Gonzalez, so you could play 5 in the back to try to steal a win. It's tough because of the depth right now, but I still wouldn't have brought Josie on first.
I think the thought process.
Well, Noel was brought on before Josie. Noel was brought on for Esmir in the 63rd minute. Then Josie gets brought on for
which is a defensive move.
That one's fine.
Yeah, and I think from there, the moves that were made, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with them, but I can at least reason with the fact that he's probably just looking for fitness. He wants somebody that's fresh, and he wants a body, and he wants bodies. And Josie's a bigger body. You start thinking about, okay, down a man, Columbus is going to be they're going to be coming down on the attack. You're going to have opportunities for free kicks, corner kicks. Josie's a bigger body that can get in there, kind of bang around inside the 18.
I can live with that.
Ima has a motor. Blessing still maybe not at 100%. He already gave you 83 minutes. What was it? 83rd minute he came off?
83rd minute, but still you're down a man, and that's
but you're looking for fresh legs.
Yeah.
You're looking for fresh legs, and if you're
maybe
not
he saw something with Blessing that he was slowing up
right,
a
and if
bit.
you're not deep, you don't want. If there's 11 men out there, I don't see those swaps happening. But it's a fact that you're playing down a man. You need somebody that's going to be able to get up and down. And hey, it might even be able to give you an opportunity on a counterattack. So, would I have made those exact moves? Probably not, but at the same time, I can at least, upon further thought, give a reason why Bruce made those decisions.
And, Tom, I'm going to walk back a little bit from what I said, just talking this out now, because of something that we have talked about as a strength for them really went out the window against Columbus. No Bobby Wood, no Henry Kessler, no Gustavo Bo. So 3 of your top players out, so that really pushes the depth chart way down. So I guess I have to walk it back with the coach a little bit because there isn't the options there. So maybe that was his thought.
Yeah, and you also got to think about something like
I just didn't, when he came in, I just don't see him doing anything.
It's
besides like committing fouls.
He's plugging up holes. I mean, he's banging bodies. He's being physical. He's getting back. And the Blessing thing to me seems strictly to get fresh legs in there.
Yeah.
It's another game where, in a big moment, Bruce's personnel decisions this year have not paid off.
Yeah, but he was hampered this week.
I get it.
Handcuffed.
I get it. I'm just saying it's.
But
something
did they
that
pay off because they still escaped with a draw?
True.
You escaped with a draw, but you were still winning. But again, I blame for all of this week. It's not Andrew Farrell's handball, which I don't think we need to spend a tremendous amount of time on because I don't think that's the story of the game. I think.
Well, if you're on social media,
if you're Willie Whitelaw, it is. If you're anybody that's on the Revs admin, it is. If you are maybe some front office members, it is. But for, I think, a fair and partial person watching that game, I think you gave it away.
I think the story of it is the VAR itself, the length of time that it took, the duration to come to that decision. The addition of the extra minutes after the 95th minute makes sense because of how long it took. 2.5 to 3 minutes. You watch it, and it's got to be one or the other. It should not take this long.
VAR is just such an infuriating bit of technology.
What made VAR so good is that it's not the NFL, because the NFL, you go over under the hood, you have to look at the replay 5 times. VAR, somebody's in your ear, yes, no, play on. That's it.
Pretty much. I mean, they still leave it up to the ref's discretion. They're asked to review it, and then they still have to go and make the call on their own. But I think in my head, and it's the same way with in the NFL where they have the Booths Challenge, I think if it warrants a review, there's probably a good chance that it's whatever the call was is going to be overturned.
Yeah.
Like there's a good chance that that's the case. But whatever. VAR is just a never-ending battle all over the world. It's not a perfect technology. They're trying, I guess.
It's just an unlucky spot because the Revolution being down a man for that long, you just have to try to eke it out for 2 more minutes. It's a tough spot. And I know there are people on social media like circling, look at the marking here. I mean, you just can't.
You're down a man.
You can't do that. You've been down a man for 30-plus minutes.
Guess what? You're down a man. at least one person is open.
Always.
That's a guarantee because there's not enough people to cover him. So.
And it was a perfect head ball. It really,
Yeah.
Petro has been so good. You have to, in order to beat him, it's got to be a perfect shot. This was a perfect head ball right past.
And you have the
corner.
built-in excuse that they're down a man. Like that's your built-in. Like why didn't they escape with 3 points? That's an easy one.
I actually thought the defense played very well against
Dave
a
Romney's
team.
a stud.
Yeah,
A
Dave
team
Romney
that's
is so good.
A team that scored 12 goals in 3 games that's been firing on all cylinders. They really put the clamp down, and they had to score in the last minute of extra time. It was a really good performance by them and the keeper, for
We
sure.
have about 5 minutes before we go to Twellman. We're a quarter of the way through the season. What sticks out to you so far? I'll go first. This is a good team, but it also could come collapsing down very easily if they go reverting back to the inconsistencies of what killed them last year. And I think a lot of it had to do offensively.
be more specific.
I think offensively there was a stark difference from 2021 to 2022. And obviously a lot of that had to do with you lose Tajon, you lose Buxa, fine. But if Rioni doesn't get going, you're essentially kind of in the same spot you were as 2022. Other than that, this is a very good team. Offensively, you're going to have to ride and die with what you've got right now. And it's working right now, but who knows where it's going to go long term. Nothing's really changed from 20. Like you've pretty much enhanced at every position except striker.
TBD. And
Yeah.
and
8.5 games
I also
in,
don't know if that's
but you
true.
also have added somebody in Bobby Wood who's already produced for you.
And
Gustavo
Gustavo
Bo, who's looked the best he has since
But
the
here's the thing,
Supporter
if Bobby
Shield season.
If Bobby Wood's not here, do you have the start that you
But
do?
he is
But he is here.
I'm just saying.
No, you're making a.
This
you're-
is a Tom
this is
Quinlan
insane.
special.
This is-
You're watching it on
You
YouTube.
literally
You're
just,
listening to it on the
you can see his
podcast.
head spinning. You literally just said
He's
if
trying to
they
do
all
this.
these things that they did while they were bad, well, no, you know what? If Bobby Wood wasn't here, well, he is. So you're making all these things that don't exist.
this is what he
He's
does.
hurt right now. Hopefully he's not. This is not a
Right,
long-term
but
issue.
you're
The
also
injury
seeing-
bug.
But that's not your point. No. That's not your point.
It's part of it.
It's not.
The injury bug was something that killed this team last year.
It
And
hurts
if
most teams.
And if it comes back in, are you deep enough to be able to prevent the issues that plagued you in 2022?
So to answer your own question, what is your take on this team for the first quarter of the season?
It's a good team, but ...
Okay, so that still doesn't
can
answer
say-
the
I mean,
question.
that's-
you can say that about anything.
Sure.
The whole team could get injured tomorrow.
You?
No, I get through week 8. If you go back and you watch this show or you listen to it, people like Tom were very down on this team and had a million question marks after the 2022 season. And I think most of those were fair from what you saw. But 8 weeks in, I'm not talking about the table. You can't look at the standings this early on. Is it nice that they are towards the top right now? Sure. I think that one thing that you said is true. They've really elevated in all areas of the field. Goalkeeper, defense, midfield, forward. So if I'm a New England Revolution fan, 8 weeks in, I'm feeling like I'm in a good spot right now.
Absolutely.
And I also think that, the last thing is with the injury bug, you saw what happened with 3 of their top players went down. They went into Columbus, who is playing at a high clip this early in the season, and came out with a point.
Yeah.
That's a positive.
It's a positive, and you remove that one game in L.A. Where at this point
The anomaly game.
and we've gotten takes from basically half the staff now at MLS Season
Pass.
Pass on Apple TV. Shout out to our team over there that they agree that you take away that LAFC game, and this team is probably the best team in the league up to this point.
One of. I mean, you still have LAFC. You have
But
Atlanta
that's what I'm
United.
saying. LAFC's ahead of them. You put them ahead of them now
We've
because
had
they
3
have.
weeks of consistent Apple personalities that have said otherwise, though.
But
They're putting the Revolution first. They're putting them over them.
This past weekend really showed me where this team improved biggest. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Improved most, biggest, yeah.
It's in their depth. And are they going to always be able to, with that depth, go out and win you games and keep you at the top of the table in the East for the rest of the season? Probably not, but that's why you have depth. It's for games like that where you need to plug and you need guys to come off the bench and give you time, including during a red card game. That's got to feel pretty good. The team looks good. They're playing well. and they're a non-red card away last week from probably stealing 3 points in Columbus.
I do think it's a great point though, because let's look at the back line, right? You had a back four that were LA game aside playing some of the best defense in MLS. Your starter goes out with Henry Kessler. Look, Andrew Farrell off the bench. There's not an MLS team that has that good of an option right now off the bench to start. So that's another positive that this team didn't have last year.
Also, MLS season passes. Very own Taylor Twellman. Coming up next here on New England Soccer Weekly. All right, New England Soccer Weekly rolls along here, and very excited to have on MLS Season Pass's very own Taylor Twellman join the show. I've known Taylor for years. It's nice to actually get him to sit down for an interview, though. It's good to catch up with you, Taylor. Welcome to New England Soccer Weekly in Providence. You got Tom, Mike, and Nick with you.
What's going on, boys? How are you?
Doing great.
Doing good, man. Appreciate it. And I think we got to add a New England Revolution legend, U.S. soccer legend on top of that as well for a proper introduction.
Respect on his name.
Yes.
Media legend. I mean, at this point, what is it, 10 years you're on television now?
No, this is, dude, you're dating me. This is 14.
14.
Nice.
Oh, okay. So I gave you a couple of years. 14 years on TV. And it was, Brad Feldman and Liz Summers that helped you really get your start on TV? Because you started with the original Fox Sports Soccer, correct?
No. So, it was actually Dale Arnold. Is a local guy. Dale Arnold was a big one. Michael Holley. I would say Michael Felger. New England Sports Boston was a massive part. 2010 World Cup, there was a couple gentlemen there still to this day. Kevin Miller, who just gave me a heads up and said, I think you'd be good at TV. And I was like, F that. I hate TV. I hate media. And here I am 14 years later. I'm one of you knuckleheads.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good.
Actually, what am I talking about? I am the knucklehead. I'm an idiot. What am I talking about? I'm the idiot.
Well, it's good company for us to be in. Maybe not so much you to be in the same company as us, but
good call.
We do appreciate you joining us. And first of all, got to be super excited. Big transition for you career-wise as well with MLS Season Pass. Talk a little bit about how that came about, how they approach you, because they couldn't have landed a better host there with you.
I appreciate that. I think as all of anyone that knows me is if I'm not doing something where my heart's into it, I'm not going to do it. And so ESPN for 13 years treated me with the utmost respect, gave me the platform that I never thought I would have had, that ultimately helped me with the Concussion Foundation and so many different things, hosting SportsCenter, things that, again, if you would ask me 13 years ago, I would have been doing that. I would have said, no way, you're out of your coconut. But their interest in soccer, for lack of a better word, was dwindling. It was hitting a wall. There was times when frustration was settling in within the soccer group that we weren't doing enough for Major League Soccer, for the FA Cup, for whatever it was. And so it was kind of difficult to then be motivated to say, okay, when they lost the U.S. men's national team and women's national team stuff, they lost Major League Soccer, they lost the Euros. At that point, I was then really being offered a great deal, but none of it was soccer. And so for me not to do soccer, guys, I just, listen, hosting SportsCenter, hosting other shows, yeah, it's awesome. But I always wanted that to be secondary, not primary. And so when it all came down to it, it took me about 5 minutes in my meeting with Apple. And when you hear and see the aspirations of where they want to take Major League Soccer in the 10-year deal, I couldn't sign quick enough.
Yeah, it kind of feels like Apple's the guinea pig for what is to come for professional sports in general. Major League Soccer, I should say, is the guinea pig for what's to come from Major League sports in general, because it seems like Amazon, Apple, all of these streaming companies have endless amounts of money to just pour in and deliver content that is built for the streaming age. I'm interested though, what do you think about the way that the eyeballs have been coming from having the broadcast TV deals with ESPN and Fox, ABC? Do you think that it's hurt MLS at all, or how do you think the league is capitalized on trying to keep that attention? Because there are a lot of people that have been watching MLS as we've seen in recent memory.
Yes and no. The numbers were also extremely stagnant. on linear television. The numbers never rarely moved. You can look at it. The data will tell you that the numbers rarely moved in soccer, whether it's the Premier League, whether it's Liga MX, whether it's Major League Soccer. The numbers have always been eerily similar. And yet for Major League Soccer, they wanted a partner that wanted to take it a different route, that wanted to grow it. And in order to do so, you've got to change the schedule. You've got to make sure that your product's being seen in its best elements under the lights, 7:30 at night. So there are a lot of factors that come into this. I think, first off, Rome wasn't built in a day. So what you see from Apple now is not what you're going to see from Apple in 6 months. It's not what you're going to see from Apple in 24 months. But the idea and the foundation that now you can get rid of certain things that were hindering your ability to grow, like the schedule, like certain other factors. Now you set yourself up perfectly to where you want to be. The most important thing to this entire conversation is what we are talking about right now on this Zoom and on this podcast. The media world in the next 2 years is going to completely change. Look at Bally Sports and the local media deals that they had. They just filed bankruptcy. That's 42 teams. Now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that would have been 4, maybe 5 MLS teams that would have been in that. So you've got to think ahead of the game. And I think while it is a risk, because you're not in front of certain eyeballs at the moment, I think it's better to ask that question in 2 or 3 years from now, because when this entire landscape changes, that's going to be the real question of where are you getting the eyeballs.
Well, that actually goes into my question, just to build on that, Taylor. 9 weeks in, we're going into match day 9. What are things with the broadcast that you've liked so far, and then things that you think that could be built upon going out throughout the season on Apple?
Yeah, I mean, listen, guys, I know the plans and the ideas that Apple and Major League Soccer have, and I think they're intriguing. I think the ability to have 24/7, 7 days a week, MLS content built around growing your league, discussing your league, all of that, that is always going to be there. There's a need for that. We as a group, we haven't gotten there yet. We will get there. That's the most exciting part, but that's also the part where I would say right now, 9 weeks in, you can now see a need where Monday through Friday, I want to be discussing MLS. I want to hear debates and analysis and critiques about the league. First and foremost, the cameras, the audio. Yeah, I mean, guys, you don't need me to tell you. It's the league. Our league has never been seen in that manner. But listen, you're doing things. We've had some broadcasts where the audio is a little difficult. We've had some broadcasts where it's not. As you guys said, and as I would tell you, Apple's trying to figure this out. Major League Soccer is trying to figure it out. Guinea pig is fairly good to say, right? That's a fairly accurate description. I think it's a little disingenuous just because Major League Baseball did 50 games on Apple TV last year. They did have that experience. But this is now over 690 some odd games, and that's not including MLS Next Pro games and whatnot. I just look forward to
plus the studio show, plus the wraparound, plus the home interface pages that are built, and like you're building. I mean, it is your own network. Like there's nothing like you don't have to worry about seeing basketball scores or NBA playoff scores. Like if you just want direct MLS content, that's all you got to pay for.
And we've talked about it too, the ability to replay games and rewatch the games that you missed, either the recap or the 90 minutes. That's a game changer too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just look at that homepage, guys. If you're a Revs fan, you click on the Revs fan. I want to see press conferences. I want to see all this stuff. I want to see debate shows. That's going to come, and that's going to be there. But to think that is now Major League Soccer, not the NBA, not the NHL, not the NFL, not Major League Baseball. I've got a couple really good friends in the NBA world, and I know for a fact that what they saw in the first 3 to 4 weeks of the MLS interaction and the ability of what Apple and MLS were putting on their platform, it's got them very intrigued with their media deal up and coming because it's changing it. You guys, we haven't talked about, though, the most important thing, and that's this. And this is where I don't know how to measure it, but 108 countries get your games with no blackouts at no times. And that's the one thing that I think Apple wants to transform, and they're using Major League Soccer to show. But if you're the NBA, if you're the Premier League, if you're the Bundesliga, if you're all these leagues that are coming up, and you can use one media partner to put your product on at the same time with no blackouts, no restrictions, no rules. Guys, you're rewriting the laws of sports media. And that's, I think, what I've got from being at Apple for this short amount of time. That's where they're not going to do anything that, one, they half-ass, but two, more importantly, they don't transform something.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest. It was a Nigel Reo-Coker we were speaking with in regards to some of the international players playing in MLS, and now their family members have the ability to watch their games right from home as opposed to having to find some type of illegal stream or something in the past.
So
that's a great point. Though, literally 2 days ago, I was sitting at a golf tournament, and I was talking with Colin Montgomery. Colin Montgomery brought it up. He brought it up. He's like, yeah, I watched an MLS game on Apple TV the other day, and his home's in London. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think we know that. Like, there's foreign players now telling me and telling other people, yeah, now everyone's watching the games. And a lot of it is in some big countries, in some big leagues, where now all of a sudden it becomes a real recruiting tool. And if you're seeing games in 1080p and the audio looks good and it's under the lights, it actually becomes your best marketing tool as well for players outside the league.
And then you look at what's happening in your city of St. Louis, and if I'm a new player, I'm going, that atmosphere, that organization, that grassroots movement is something I want to be a part of. And I would love to know just your overall thoughts of just the dream start for, really your home city's club, St. Louis SC.
Yeah, listen, St. Louis City is putting they're putting their money where my mouth has been for the last, I would say 10 to 15 years. I've been on my horn. I've been tooting my horn and tooting St. Louis and just telling everyone and anyone that wanted to listen, if Major League Soccer is going to expand, you have to be in St. Louis. You can't think that just Cincinnati, Nashville, Austin, St. Louis through and through is one of the few cities in America where soccer's in the fabric. Now, in saying that, nobody expected this. And I think it's been a little miscalculated, the job Lutz Pfannenstiel has done in bringing all the foreign players over sooner. So they were there for 6-7 months. They played in MLS Next Pro. They understood what it is. But to think that they'd be leading the Supporter Shield after 8 weeks, no way. You could have given me $1,000 free bet. I wasn't taking that bet. I can promise you that. So good on them. There's a lot to be had. But there's still a real part of me when I'm in that stadium in that city park that thinks about what downtown Boston will be when they get their stadium. And that is something
Taylor,
I will never lose.
Taylor, don't do this with Tom Taylor. God, come on, man.
Enough PTSD.
No, I will never.
Let's not do this right now.
No.
No, I will never lose that hope, that dream. And that is something that if New York City can build a $2.5 billion soccer stadium with a casino in it, with all of the state legislature and everything lined up, and until the shovel's in the ground, I get it, right? So we all want to wait until the shovel's in the ground. But there is going to be a day when downtown Boston has a stadium. And what St. Louis has done and what they've done with it, Boston would absolutely be a home run, and I just can't wait to that day.
But, Taylor, you have politicians that hate the Revs and that they hate the crafts, and they are doing everything, and the environmentalist groups are doing everything they can to prevent this thing from happening. You had Whitted Circle most recently go to the MBTA for half the price that Bob Kraft would have paid for it in 2018. You had the Boston Teachers Union back in 2017 kill the Bayside Expo Center. The last hope that we have at this point is Everett. And it's just like, to me, the everything doesn't make sense, because why would Bob Kraft go help go save another billionaire? Because I don't think the Wynn properties are making hand over fist like, I think they were hoping for. And I think Bob Kraft putting a stadium in there saves Wynn. But I'm going to bash my head over the table. But anyways, what do you got to say about that?
Pandora's box over here, Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor, did someone feed you notes, Tayller? Like, what's going on?
I can't.
No, I think you're misreading the opportunity there with Wynn, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
All right, so let's move on to the field with the Revolution. You talked about St. Louis's hot start. The New England Revolution coming off a down 2022 year. We can leave that behind. What have your thoughts been on them 8 weeks in, and did you think they were going to have as well of a start as they have had so far?
Yes, and I'm not saying that surprisingly, but I don't think it's that big of a odd thing to think about. It's not as if this team all of a sudden just forgot who they were. This is a team that was really, really good, the best regular season we've ever seen. And it's not as if a lot of those guys all of a sudden left and forgot it. Now, in saying that, I think Bruce Arena, he won't say it publicly, but I think naturally he looked at last year, needed to adjust a little bit. I actually think they've got a real shot at being the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. I also, though, there's a part of me that thinks they're out kicking their coverage a little bit. This summer, when someone offers $7 to $12 million for Petrovic, you have to sell him. You have to sell him. And so what do you do with that? If you look at the metrics and analytically get into it, they do give up a lot of chances. And Petrovic is as good as Andre Blake, if not better. And so is he saving you points to be in this spot? I've said it. I'm going to say it again. I think Carlos Heel is going to be the best player in Revolution history. He is a special talent. They've got enough guys that can put the ball in the back of the net. I just think if you have to move on from Petrovic because the deal is so good, which, by the way, would be remarkable that they've had two goalkeepers bring in $15 million as a business move. It's just unbelievable. But Petrovic is a real game changer. I think that's a situation I'm really going to be interested in this summer because that may change the likelihood of where the Revs finish.
But let me ask you about Petrovic because I think last year was a sign that you can't sell your top players in season because we saw how it completely destroyed the Revs for the rest of 2022 after you lost Turner, after you lost Buxa. Can they get a similar deal like they got with
Hold
Tajon?
on. Last year they struggled because they lost Turner?
No. I would say that was part of it. I would say that first off, not having him after Frostbite Gate, killed you, and then defensively they pretty much had the same holes that they did.
Yeah, but I think the bigger.
Losing Buxa was obviously the bigger issue.
The offensive production was the bigger issue.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think
Tajon
losing
Buchanan,
Turner didn't help
Buxa,
either.
Carlos Heel was kind of out of it. Bo was hurt. There was a lot of other issues. I don't think Turner.
But the larger question is, can you keep these guys until the end of the season and try to find a club that'll do the same deal that you did with Tajon?
Why? LAFC sold 7 players, brought in 8 midseason, won the Supporters Shield, and won MLS Cup. So
New England's at Los Angeles.
Yeah, it says who?
Bruce Arena. He says that you can't get the same type of player.
Why is that? What type
stadium.
of player What type of player does LAFC have or has signed in the last 10 months that costs that much money that the Revs can't get?
Financially, it's more of a. Well, there's always been as you know, as a former Revs player, there's always been this kind of like. They don't have the appeal that maybe a New York City and LA has. Like obviously Gareth Bale, for example, went to LA last year, and as he wasn't a super factor there, but he did have a big play in the MLS Cup. And it just seems as if sometimes New England struggles bringing in that type of player. Not that it's necessary; they've done an incredible job.
No,
building their own players.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. First off, New York City is wrong to put in that conversation because no one wants to go there right now because they play in a baseball stadium.
Yep.
But you're not wrong. However, until recently, and do you know why? They sold Tajon. They sold Matt Turner. How'd they get Petrovic? They convinced Petrovic, if you come here, we're going to play you. We're going to change your career. We're going to move you on. I don't care what kind of player he is business-wise. If you hand me $8 million plus for Petrovic and I get $7 million from Matt Turner, and for my organization, $15 million, so what is it, $14 million goes to me? With all due respect, I have to make that move. And if that move breaks your back, then it's a reflection of your roster. It's not a reflection of one player leaving because LAFC got rid of, they didn't bring in 7 DPs, guys. Mm-hmm. We talk as if LAFC brought in 7 designated players. No, they didn't. They didn't. They're bringing in under 22s. Barrero's a fantastic signing. I think he's even better than what Buchanan was at this point of his career. And Buchanan turned into something. The Revolution now are all of a sudden being discussed by scouts in Europe, by other people, because they're part of the game now. They're selling players. They're understanding moving on. If they get $8 million plus and move on Petrovic, they will be one, because you guys all told me, and everyone told me losing Matt Turner is going to break their back. I think Petrovic is better than Matt Turner.
Yeah.
So you just got to have your scouting system. You got to have the ability to sign players and go get them. Because what Chris Tierney and Kurt Onalfo did to get Petrovic for less than $2 million is one of the best moves this league's ever seen.
I guess it took too long to have that impact really make a difference for the Revs. I guess that would be my
Also, Petrovic was up for goalkeeper of the year.
Yeah, who's
Yeah, it was his first season. Tommy, we got.
let's move on.
Let's backtrack a little bit.
Hold on. No. Let's deviate away from that for a second. You talk about not being, one guy breaking a team's back and Bruce, and that would lead to you thinking that did Bruce build the best roster depth-wise, to have these guys ready for when guys are interchange in and out? I think it's a new thing for New England. This is a new, this wasn't a seller's market for ever before Bruce got here. So to have this type of new conversation, it's a new type of, way of approaching business for New England. And that's why it's harder for a New England to be able to turn around players than it is for an LAFC, a Seattle, a Miami.
Yeah, but we're saying signing Omar Gonzalez didn't pan out the way they wanted it to, right? Injuries were there. Buxa was on fire. Buxa desperately wanted to go to Europe before the World Cup. If you ask Adam Buxa right now, was it the right move? I'm not totally sure he would agree with that. And so you look around and say, yeah, absolutely. But the revolution have changed. If you bring Kurt Onalfo and Chris Tierney into a room with Bruce Arena and his staff, guys, it's a different revolution. They are not, they are part of the business sense. Their academy's been fantastic since Kurt Onalfo's gotten in charge of that. You're talking about another player that is going to get a real transfer offer, but that's easier to adjust. A player that's young, up and coming, and not really at the top of it. You could say if Buck wants to leave, yeah, we'll give you in the wintertime when our season ends. They'll do that type of deal. Petrovic is a game changer, and you want your goalkeeper to come. And I hope for the Revolution's sake, they've got a decision to make, because that means their business is being recognized by others. And the word I'm hearing from many people in Europe, Petrovic is at the forefront of every goalkeeping scout and prospect all over the world. And I think it's cool from a Revolution perspective that you could have two players sold for $15 million plus, because that means now all of a sudden you understand what kind of business you're in, because as you guys said it, I didn't. I want to make sure that's abundantly clear. That was never part of the conversation.
I would say not all of us. Not all of us. But you bring up Adam Buxa, Taylor. I want to go back to that because I saw your tweet from a few days ago. You mentioned what you just mentioned on the show. What are you hearing about Buxa? Do you think it's a potential for him to come back to New England? If he does come back to MLS, what are your thoughts on that?
The thoughts are exactly what I tweeted. I'd be shocked if Adam Buxa isn't in MLS this summer. It was very, very, very close for him joining one of two inquiring teams this past transfer window. And Adam is exploring his MLS options as we speak. Is New England one of them? I know Bruce Arena's on the record, and I'll hear from, they would absolutely be interested. But now all of a sudden there's going to be a little bit of a fight to get him, because there are other teams that are very interested and what Adam can do. And mind you, it was those last 7-8 games that he played last season before leaving that has convinced other managers he could probably score 15, 20 goals in this league with the right setup.
How do you do that because MLS roster rules are so wonky that, Adam Buxa was considered a designated player. The Revs have 3 designated players on the roster right now. Would they have to buy down Gustavo Bo to a TAM or GAM level player to get Adam Buxa back here, hypothetically, if that was to be the bit of business that they did?
I don't want to lose any of the podcast listeners because we are getting into a calculator weeds I'm not. Nope. All depends on the numbers. It depends on how much TAM, all of those factors. But would the Revs be interested? Sure, absolutely. They'd be dumb not to be. And Bruce Arena's on the record at saying that. It's just other teams have been on the not on the record. And Adam Buxa may have his choice to make, which could be interesting.
Quarterway point of the season. Who are the top teams that you're looking at in the Eastern Conference? Who are the teams that you're disappointed with in the East?
That's a good one. I think Toronto, while the record doesn't show it, I don't think they're far off of having something to say. What's their record? 1-1-6. It's 6 draws. That's a situation there. They got way too much talent. They have a position open for a 9 this summer. I think they may make a signing. And then, with Bob Bradley and his experience, they're interesting. I love FC Cincinnati. You've got to find a way to win games 1-0. They couldn't do it last year. Pat Noonan, Dominic Kinnear, those guys have done it. However, Tom, to bring it back to the conversation, they're in a very tricky spot. They're going to sell Brainer. They're more than likely going to have to make a big-time decision on Vasquez if the rumors are true and the offers that they're going to get. And so they could be off to a great year, and then they lose 2 of their 3 best attacking players. They've got to have options. They've got to have replacements ready. So that's an interesting one. Disappointment. I'm a little surprised Charlotte hasn't been as good as I thought they would be, but their roster's weird. It's a weird roster. But honestly, this is LAFC's league to lose. So.
Exciting times right now, just overall, United States soccer. Obviously, with coming off of the World Cup, a lot of young talent, a lot of borderline international players choosing to play in the United States. But here locally, we have in Rhode Island a USL team coming to Rhode Island, and will be kicking off next year. As a guy that spent a lot of time in this area, how important is the USL as a whole for MLS and U.S. soccer? And you going to come to any games?
Yeah, dude, I can't wait. I mean, Providence deserves this. Rhode Island deserves this. Michael Parkhurst does not deserve this. But it's awesome. I'm excited for Conno Smith. He's put in a real grind of hard work to learn the business, to learn the trade. He gets an opportunity to do it. But that town, Providence, has some of the best soccer people and soccer representation of what this market can be and what it should be. And honestly, the USL has a huge impact on what this sport is and where it's going to be throughout the rest of the time and when the World Cup comes here. So Providence deserves to be on the soccer landscape, and I'm happy they're going to do it right with their stadium. And I'm happy I got a couple friends of mine that are going to be a part of that opening time. So yeah, absolutely. If I got any time in my schedule, which is as hard as it comes, I will 1,000% be at a Providence game.
Were you out in Providence when you were playing for the Revs? Did you ever come down here?
I came down there a lot, actually. My brother was at Stanford. They play Brown every year, so I went to 2 Brown games every year. Jeff Lorenowitz obviously played for Brown, so I went down there. I play a lot of golf in Rhode Island. I did many hours in Providence. I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, we appreciate. What was that?
No, I was just asking if you guys had anything else.
Yeah, I mean, just to wrap up with the Revs game against Sporting KC on Saturday night. How would you approach this as a player? I mean, these are the trap games that we talk about, where a team that's riding high playing a team that's at the bottom of the West. They've scored 2 goals through 8 games. This is a big mental test, I think, for the Revolution, because this is a game you should win.
Yeah, you just put it the best way. Now, you're asking me as a player. I went into trap games expecting to score 7 goals. So I was the worst guy to ask, right? So you're like, no, this is all about me. I'm going to score as many goals as possible. But all kidding aside, Peter Vermees teams, this team with some of the players and that, they can't get out of their own way. Sometimes the wounded dog is the absolute worst team to play. But I would be stunned if Bruce Arena doesn't have this team ready. And I would be stunned if the Revs drop points at home against the Sporting Kansas City team, because I really do believe they are up against it. They haven't shown any signs of getting out of it. And I think Bruce understands that and knows that well and will take advantage of it.
I mean, that just had to feel like a loss the other night. You're beating Columbus 1-0 on the road. You probably should have been up 2-0 if Giacomo finishes one of his chances in the first half, and then a stupid red card or a stupid second yellow card from Dylan Barrero completely swings the momentum of the game. And say what you want about the clock, as I said in the first segment, just it makes no difference. You should have won that game in Columbus, but just stupid decisions killed you at the end from player personnel side and from Barrero's side.
Yeah, I listen. I'm with you. If you're blaming the ref and time and extra time and whatnot, then I just it just doesn't feel right. It never has. Obviously, was it part of it? Sure. But then you dissect it, as you guys probably talked about in the segment. It wasn't that far off. I think the first yellow is an interesting debate there because it's consistently not called. But it is now all of a sudden over the last 2 weeks because that's a point of emphasis. But my biggest concern from the Revs, as I told you guys already, is the amount of chances they give up. They give up chances. They rely on Petrovic to stand on his head. At some point, that dam breaks. You've got to be prepared to have a little bit of a different element of how you want to play. That would be my biggest concern. But Columbus is a good team. I enjoy watching them play. I think as a neutral, they're a fun team to cover. Wilfred Nancy is a real good manager. But I'm with you. That has to feel like a loss when you've gotten to that point, 1-0, survive the red card, and then you give up a goal in that manner. You sit there and say, really?
There you go. MLS season passes. What do you got? Anything?
Yeah, no, I was going to say you took time in between dad duty to come give us some time. We really appreciate it.
Much respect.
Awesome,
Thank
man.
you.
Appreciate
You guys are great. Keep up the good work. We need more people talking about the game. So I appreciate what you guys do.
Get us on that debate show when with Apple. We'll gladly provide content. Let us know who we got to send it to.
Yeah, we just want to keep viewers. We don't want to lose them.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. As a matter of fact, we're going to clip that. That's what we're going to use this week for Twitter.
Yep, thank you.
MLS season passes. Taylor Twellman joining us on New England Soccer Weekly. Taylor, thank you.
Yep. See you guys. Be good.